Somebody hooked an oscilloscope up to a $370 generator, expecting to watch it fail. The whole point of the test was proving cheap generators put out dirty, jagged electricity that'll fry a laptop charger or a phone battery. That's the assumption. That's why everybody defaults to spending $1,200 on the brand with a reputation, instead of trusting anything cheaper. The scope came back showing a clean, smooth sine wave. Same shape, same quality as the $1,200 generator sitting right next to it on the same test bench. Not a marketing claim on a box. A screen, two waveforms side by side, and they matched. You're going to hear exactly which brand that was, and exactly where it still lost ground to the expensive name at the very end of this list. A generator either makes clean power or it doesn't, and that's a harder thing to fake than most of what I usually cover on this channel. You can't inflate a sine wave the way you can inflate a battery claim or a hardness rating. Either the electricity coming out of the outlet is smooth enough to run a laptop without frying the charging circuit, or it isn't, and an oscilloscope will tell you which one it actually is in about 5 seconds. Think about what a generator is actually being trusted to do, too. It's not decoration. It's the thing running your fridge during a blackout, keeping a sump pump alive during a storm, or charging medical equipment when the grid goes down. People pay the reputation premium specifically because they're scared of exactly that moment, the one where cheap electricity fries something they can't afford to lose. That fear isn't irrational. Cheap electronics have absolutely destroyed sensitive equipment before, and anyone who's had it happen once will pay almost anything to never have it happen again. That's exactly the kind of fear a $1,200 price tag is built to soothe, whether or not the machine underneath actually earns it. The only way to know if it does is the same way you'd check anything else on this channel. Hook up the equipment that actually measures the thing you're worried about and read the number. 5 brands made this list, and every one of them had to clear a real bar to get here. Not cheap and untested. Not popular on a listing with 1,000 reviews nobody verified. Real independent testing. A real credential that means something. Or a track record long enough that a systemic problem would have surfaced publicly by now if one existed. Some of these entries have more depth behind them than others, and I'm going to say exactly where that gap is, instead of pretending all 5 are backed by the same weight of evidence. My name's Walt Renner. I dig into real independent data before I trust any label. And I'll tell you exactly where every number in this video actually came from. No review units for this one. No ads for any of these 5 brands. 5 cheap generators that quietly do more than their price tag suggests. Worst proof to strongest, finishing with a one that's got real head-to-head lab data behind it, oil analysis included. Before I go any further, I want to mention something once because it matters, and then I won't bring it up again. There's more to how I actually run these investigations than fits into any single video. The full bench test breakdown, how I source and verify every number before it goes in a script, the brands and products that get ruled out before they ever make a list. I wrote it all up on my website, links just below. I won't mention it again. If it interests you, it's there. Number 5. AI power, and its credibility comes from a place you wouldn't expect. It's the preferred generator brand of the National Hot Rod Association, the actual governing body for drag racing in the US and Canada. An organization that has zero incentive to endorse a generator that can't hold up to real, demanding, professional use trackside, running timing equipment and broadcast gear, where a failure is public and expensive. Its SUA 2000i model tested out at 58 decibels, about the same noise level as a household refrigerator running in the next room, at a price under $400. And it's light enough, at right around 48 pounds, to actually carry to a campsite or a tailgate, instead of just leaving it bolted to a truck bed. AI Power is also a genuinely young company as generator brands go. Headquartered in California, but manufacturing overseas the way most of this category does, name included. That's worth knowing not as a strike against it, but as context. It built a real professional endorsement faster than most brands manage, which says something about the actual hardware, even without decades of consumer history to lean on yet. This is the entry with the least depth behind it on this list, worth saying plainly. One credible endorsement and one decibel number is real evidence, but it's not the same weight as a lab test. If NHRA's use case doesn't match yours, sitting on a race truck instead of powering a fridge for 3 days, that endorsement tells you less than it sounds like it does. Number 4. Briggs and Stratton. And this is the one most people don't realize they should already trust. Briggs and Stratton doesn't just build its own generators, it supplies engines to several other generator brands on the market, the same way Whirlpool Corporation's name shows up under 4 different logos in an appliance aisle. Its engineering is already running inside products you might assume are entirely unrelated companies. The P2400 model was one of the first inverter generators on the market to include built-in carbon monoxide monitoring, a genuine safety feature plenty of pricier competitors still don't offer standard. And one independent reviewer called it flatly underrated, a direct recommendation, not a hedge. The safety feature matters more than it sounds like on a spec sheet. Carbon monoxide doesn't announce itself, and a generator running in a garage or near a cracked window is exactly the scenario that monitoring exists for. A budget brand shipping that standard, ahead of some competitors charging more, is a genuine point in its favor, not just a checkbox. There's also something to be said for a company with as long a history building small gasoline engines as Briggs and Stratton has, choosing to put that experience into a budget-tier inverter instead of only its premium models. That's the opposite of what you'd expect from a company protecting a legacy brand name. It suggests the engineering underneath the price tag isn't getting cut the way it might with a newer company still figuring out where corners are safe to cut. Number 3. Pulsar. And this one comes with real independent testing behind it, not just a credential. A separate roundup testing its own set of generators landed on the Pulsar 2,200-watt dual-fuel quiet inverter as their pick for best bang for the buck in the whole comparison, not just the budget tier. Dual fuel matters more than it sounds like, too. Being able to run on propane instead of gasoline means fuel that doesn't go stale in a shed for a year waiting on an emergency that might not come, which is exactly the situation most people actually keep a backup generator for. Gasoline left sitting in a tank for months is one of the most common reasons any generator, budget or premium, fails to start on the one day it's actually needed. It gums up carburetors, gunks up fuel lines, and turns a machine that ran perfectly in the driveway test into a machine that won't turn over during the actual outage. A dual fuel option sidesteps that entire failure mode for anyone willing to keep a propane tank around instead, which is a genuinely practical advantage a lot of premium single-fuel generators, Honda included, simply don't offer. Number 2. When. And this is the one with the longest track record of anyone on this list besides the brand you're about to hear at number 1. When one outlet ran 11 different inverter generators through their own testing, the WEN GN5602X came out as their pick for best bang for the buck in the whole lineup. Not just the budget category, the whole thing. WEN's been building consumer power equipment since 1951, tracing back to some of the earliest chainsaws and electric jigsaws on the market. That history is exactly why one reviewer specifically recommended WEN over newer competitors. Not because of a marketing claim, but because there's simply more real-world runtime behind the name. More owners, more years, more chances for a real problem to have surfaced publicly, if one existed. Two different outlets, two different budget brands, both independently landing on the exact same best bang for the buck title in their own separate tests. That's not a coincidence you get from a lucky marketing push. That's real testing, agreeing a budget name is doing something right. Arrived at completely independently, twice. Longevity matters differently than a single lab test does. A brand that shipped power equipment since 1951 has been through recessions, supply chain shortages, and decades of owners posting online the moment something breaks. If WEN had a systemic reliability problem the way some newer budget brands might still be quietly hiding, 70+ years is more than enough time for that reputation to have caught up with it. It hasn't. Number 1. Genmax, the $370 generator from the oscilloscope test at the very start of this video, run head-to-head against a $570 Harbor Freight Predator and a Honda priced over $1,200. Through voltage drop under load, noise measured from 25 feet in every direction, fuel efficiency down to the ounce, and the part almost nobody else bothers doing, an actual lab analysis of the engine oil after close to 96 hours of runtime to see which engine wore down the most on the inside, where you can't see it. Every one of the three machines in this test is what's called an inverter generator, not the older, heavier, open frame style most people picture when they hear the word generator. An inverter generator runs the engine at a variable speed depending on demand, converts that output to DC power, and then inverts it back to clean AC current, which is the part of the process that actually determines whether your electronics get smooth power or a jagged mess. That's a meaningfully more complex process to engineer correctly than an older style generator simply spinning at a fixed speed, which is exactly why the sine wave test matters as much as it does here. That variable speed design is also where a chunk of the fuel efficiency numbers you're about to hear come from. An open-frame generator runs its engine flat out the entire time it's on, whether you're powering a single phone charger or maxing out its full rated wattage. An inverter generator throttles down when demand is low, which is the entire mechanism behind eco mode. And it's a big part of why even a budget inverter can genuinely out-sip a bigger, more expensive machine under a light load. The engineering, not the price tag, is what determines whether that throttling actually works cleanly or introduces the kind of instability that shows up as a rough sine wave. Start with the sine wave, because that's the test that should scare you the most if you've ever assumed cheap means dangerous for your electronics. Both the Genmax and the Predator produced genuine, pure sine wave power, confirmed on the same oscilloscope as the Honda, holding steady switching from no load to a full electrical load. Compare that to a cheaper open-frame generator tested in the same session, the kind without an inverter at all, which put out visibly jagged, inconsistent power even under a light load. That's the generator that actually deserves the reputation cheap machines get saddled with. An inverter generator, even a budget one, is a fundamentally different product, and lumping them together is exactly the mistake that keeps people overpaying. Voltage is where the gap actually shows up, and it's real. Under a space heater load with eco mode off, the Genmax held at 116.3 volts. The Honda never dropped below 120 volts at all, and needed zero recovery time doing it. That's a genuine, measurable advantage for the expensive name. Noise told a similar story, with the Genmax running loudest of the three brands tested at 64.8 decibels averaged under load, against the Honda's 58.9. Here's where it flips. Sent out for lab analysis after close to 96 hours of use, the Genmax's oil came back with the highest aluminum content of the three machines, a real sign of internal engine wear, and the second highest iron content. It also shut down under a sustained 1,500-watt load at just under 19 minutes, apparently from vapor lock, needing about 3 minutes of troubleshooting to restart. The Honda ran that same 1,500-watt load for a full 32 minutes without quitting. Real gaps, not nothing. Vibration tracked the same pattern, measured directly off the table each generator sat on. The Honda ran smoothest at right around 9 meters per second squared. The Genmax next at 11.55, both numbers that point in the same direction as the oil report, even if you'd never noticed the difference standing next to either one in a store. And here's where it wins back ground. Fuel efficiency under a lighter, more typical load handed Genmax a real advantage, edging out the Honda by roughly 30 seconds in eco mode on identical fuel loads. And the Predator beat both of them outright once eco mode was turned off entirely. Starting effort wasn't close at all. The Genmax took just 18.7 pounds of pull force to start, against 52.9 for the Honda, nearly 3 times the effort for every single start, which matters more than it sounds like when you're the one pulling that cord in the cold and the dark during an actual outage, possibly more than once if the first pull doesn't catch. None of these numbers exist in isolation either. A generator that's brutally hard to start but sips fuel all night is a different machine to own than one that starts on the first pull but needs refueling every couple hours. Genmax landing on the easy start, efficient side of that trade-off, while giving up some ground on raw voltage stability, is exactly the kind of specific profile that matters more once you know your own actual use case than any single winner label ever could. The honest tally? A $370 generator that matched a $1,200 name on the test, that actually protects your electronics, beat it outright on starting effort and light load fuel efficiency, and lost real ground on voltage stability, noise, wear metals, and how it handled the heaviest sustained load in the test. That's not cheap wins. That's a genuine, specific trade-off. Good for somebody who needs occasional backup power. Worse for a contractor running it daily on a job site, where that wear gap and that heavy load cutoff would show up fast, month after month. Put a number on what that gap actually costs you too. Even accounting for the Genmax needing more attention over its lifespan, the $830 difference between it and the Honda buys a lot of margin for extra maintenance, an earlier replacement, or simply the peace of mind of not being precious about a machine you paid a third as much for. The math only stops favoring Genmax if you're the kind of user running a generator daily under heavy, sustained load, which is a genuinely different buyer than the person keeping one in a garage for the 2 or 3 times a year the power actually goes out. One honest caveat belongs across this entire list, not just Genmax. There isn't enough long-term consumer history yet on any of these 5 names to know how they hold up over 5 or 10 years, the way a decades-old reputation already has. That's not a reason to avoid them. It's a reason to buy the extended warranty if one's offered, and treat the first year as the real test. The same way the oil analysis in this video only meant something because it was actually measured, not assumed. A brand can absolutely earn a reputation for reliability over time. Every one of these 5 is still earning it in real time, in public, which is a different situation than a name that's already spent decades proving it. That's also exactly why Wen and Briggs and Stratton carry a little more built-in confidence than AI Power or Pulsar on this list. even though all 5 passed the same 2-question test. Decades of consumer history isn't a guarantee nothing will ever go wrong. It's a much larger sample size of real owners who would have said something publicly by now if something regularly did. Run these against the same 2 questions before you buy. Is the power actually clean, sine wave confirmed, not just claimed on the box? And does the brand have real, independent testing behind it? Not just a 5-star average from people 1 week into ownership. All 5 names on this list pass both. A lot of generators sitting at 3 times the price can't say the same. And a lot of generators sitting at 1/3 of the price can't say it either. This isn't cheap always wins. It's that these 5 specific names did the work to actually earn the price they're charging. Tell me in the comments which one of these you're already running or which one you're about to buy. I read every single one of these, and if you've got wear data of your own after a season of real use, I want to hear it. If someone in your life is about to drop $1,200 on a name alone, assuming that's the only way to get real backup power, send them this first. And since clean power turned out to matter more than price tag on every single test in this video, wait until you see what happens when I run the same oscilloscope test on portable power stations claiming the exact same thing. Some of those numbers are going to surprise you a lot more than this one did.